It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Dave Fink, CEO and co-founder of Postie. Dave thinks the best kept secret in marketing is hiding where you least expect it, in your mailbox. Over a 20-year career, he's generated hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue, powered viral sensations like Dollar Shave Club, and helped launch celebrity startups for Jessica Simpson, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, and Kate Bosworth. Now as a founder and CEO of Postie, he's out to reinvent direct mail marketing for a digital world. Dave was working for a Web 1.0 marketing company, watching his clients at legacy giants like Procter Gamble and Clorox toiling away at the same cramped desks year after year. Meanwhile, his contacts at digitally savvy tech startups were busy trading in their Hyundais for Ferraris. Something big was happening, and he was determined to be a part of it. Fast forward to 2010s, and Dave had transformed that determination into an incredible career as a multi-time founder, early-stage tech investor, and digital marketing guru. But despite the success of his strategy, one advertising channel remained stubbornly resistant to his attempts at modernization: direct mail. Dave cracked that problem in early 2017 when he unveiled Posties, finally empowering old-fashioned mail to perform as dynamically as the best modern digital channels. They've quickly become the preferred direct mail solution for top digitally native brands like Lyft, Casper, Warby Parker, and many, many more. Dave Fink, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here, and wonderful to kind of get connected as we get into the summer months now. I'm not sure what part of the country you're in today, but it's getting warm down in Florida. Where are we talking to you today?
Oh, I have a feeling we have you beat. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh yeah.
I think we're at our 30th consecutive day over 100.
Oh my gosh, yeah, hitting those triple digits. Well, stay well hydrated, right? That's what they always tell us. Well, Dave, we'd like to kick things off, really just kind of talking about the early years. And I don't think you were born and raised in Austin, but would love to hear where that was and tell us a little bit about your early family life.
Sure. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was, really kind of a child of the 80s. And
brothers and sisters. Mom and dad do.
I'm a middle child. I have two sisters, pretty equidistant. I think one's 4 years older than me and one's 3 years younger. And we had, I think, a fairly idyllic, suburban Midwestern upbringing. I feel very, very fortunate. Great mom and dad, some, cousins not too far away, good schools, green park districts, kind of all those boxes checked that 1980s TV shows like to portray.
I love it. What did mom and dad do?
They were both in real estate. Mom, who took a number of years off, but I think by the time I was in middle school and ended up going back to work as a residential real estate broker.
Yep.
And my father was a commercial real estate broker, focused on deals with shopping centers and high-rise buildings and all that good stuff.
Did they work in the same office or for separate entities?
For the vast majority of their careers, they worked in different
Yeah,
offices.
good
There was
strategy.
yeah, I think that's probably healthier. But there was a short stint later in their career that they did end up working in the same office, but did different teams.
Yeah, yeah. What were some of the early childhood memories you had from mom and dad, or some of the lessons you learned at home?
I mean, look, as it applies to business, we were in a family that had two commission only
Yeah,
earners.
entrepreneurs. Yeah, right.
Yeah, entrepreneurs in some regard, but I think they enjoyed the freedom, they enjoyed their
Yeah,
earning potential, but we certainly experienced lean years,
feast
and
and famine. Yeah.
yeah, it really was, and they were very transparent about that,
Mm,
and it was incredibly important for them that my sisters and I all worked hard in school, got good formal educations, found things that we were passionate about because they had long careers where it was hard work and it wasn't
sure.
always easy. And education, they felt, they came from that generation where education creates opportunity. And I think
Right.
that there's a lot of truth to that. Certainly, being a tech entrepreneur, there's no shortage of individuals who chose to go different paths, but they're still generally highly educated people. I mean,
Right.
you hear
Right.
about the Stanford dropout, but that's still a person who worked very hard for many years and was highly educated.
Yeah. Did you have jobs as a single digiter? Did you have the paper route or other things that you did as a kid to raise money?
Not as a single digiter, but
Yeah.
very early on, I
Yeah.
remember, quite frankly, just lying about my age, thinking I was so smart,
Right.
and it was years later that I wisened up and realized I was getting paid like $3 an hour cash, as if like the guy that hired me didn't know I was underage. But
Right.
I was very very industrious at an early age, and I loved working. I loved contributing. I loved engaging in with business owners, and like many, I think, preteens and then teens spent most of my early working days in different retail outfits. So my first job, I think I was probably 12, maybe 11, and I think it was at a time when you had to be 13 or 14 to have your worker's permit, and I was into skateboarding and BMX biking, and
Nice.
a skate shop not that far from my house, and I just picked up the phone and I vividly remember being nervous about lying about my age, and just desperately wanted a job there.
Yeah.
Not because I needed the money, I just wanted to be,
Be around it. Be a part of the
yeah,
culture. Yeah. Cool.
yeah, and that was so that was the first job, and I usually had multiple jobs at a time. I remember working at another sports store or sporting goods store. I remember working at the same time at I don't know if you remember Coconut Records,
Right.
record store,
Was that
and
like the warehouse or one of those 80s record stores, or what was the coconut?
yeah, it was one of the first chains,
Right.
and I remember I actually hated that job, mainly because I did, my manager was like a high school kid who I think was on a bit of a power trip,
Oh
and
yeah.
I remember. Do you remember how the tapes? I don't know how old you are, but I'm at an age where it was tapes, and the racks at the record stores, the tapes were put in these like long plastic white
Right. Right.
containers,
Sure.
and they had all these like micro shelving units, and this manager just wanted an equal number of tapes in each one of these little segments, and so I literally had to go around hundreds.
Busy
uh,
work.
and then someone would come in and take one off the shelf in the middle of the store, and you'd have to realign everything. And so
Oh gosh.
it wasn't high fidelity. It wasn't Jack Black's character, but I thought it was going to be. And so yeah, always had those type of jobs. I worked at a play against sports, and that was a job I loved. Fun people.
How'd you do in school? Those
In
early
up
days.
until college, I did fine.
Yeah.
B's, a C here or there, an A here or there. In college, that's where I started working, and pretty close to a 4.0
Yeah,
in
cool.
college.
Stepped it up. Found
And
something you liked.
yeah, I
Yeah,
just it was inspired by great professors.
right.
I'm a fortunate person where my parents covered the tuition, and I was very aware that that wasn't super easy for them, and so I felt an obligation to put school first and make sure I got educated, and I like it. Quite frankly, I always found professors and subject matter that I enjoyed. None of it aligned with anything that I really do today, but I think that's
That's
okay.
okay.
School
You're there
taught
to
me.
learn. You'd
Yeah.
mentioned being inspired by a college professor or two. Tell us about maybe one or two that you can recall, and what was the subject matter, and what was the kind of inspiring thoughts and direction you got at that time.
Yeah, so interestingly, the teachers, the professors that inspired me were all humanities and comp lit
Hmm.
professors.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with reading. If you looked around my office right now, yeah, hundreds and hundreds of books in every
Yeah.
genre you can imagine. I just I wasn't much of a reader in high school. Definitely more of an outside kid, like I said,
Right.
skateboarding and
Right.
playing hockey and whatever. But in college, just got really fortunate freshman year that a couple professors, and these were like Truman scholars and Marshall scholars,
Wow.
and just really lucked into some folks that got me kind of addicted to reading and learning. And interestingly, there was a professor who I just thought was really interesting. I hadn't thought about in years, and about a year ago, maybe less, I was back home at my mom's house in Chicago and going through some old um, bins of stuff, and I came,
Notebooks
yeah, yeah,
from
but
college. Yeah.
I came across what is it called, like a letter of reference from that professor. Hadn't thought about him forever, and looked him up on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and sure enough, he had left academia, at some point, started his own tech company, sold that tech company, and so I just dropped him a note, said,
Yeah.
"Hey, you have no idea if you'll remember me or not, but you got me addicted to reading," and he wrote back right away and congratulated me on my career, and it was awesome. He asked me what I was reading. It was super
Cool.
fun. So that was
Yeah.
25 years later,
Less
something
years
like that.
later. That's awesome. What kind of work were you doing? I mean, did you have to work during school? You'd mentioned that you had the advantage of having your tuition covered, but did you also work during college years? And if so, what kind of jobs were you doing then?
Yeah, not much. An internship here or there, and then
Right.
I always worked during the summers. I was, yeah, I've always been a fairly frugal and person and conservative spender, so didn't take a ton to go a while, and I was in a position where, because my parents were covering tuition, I was able to earn enough over the summers in order
Nice.
to get by throughout the years. Once I graduated, college, had a job pretty much every day of my life since. But was fortunate that I was able to focus on school and then have some fun. And I recognize that that's not probably the norm these days, especially with the cost of education where it's at right now.
Well, your grades reflect it, and that's a good thing. You graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but I see that you've got also University of Colorado Boulder. Did you get started there and then transfer out, or tell me about your experiences at both those universities?
That's right. Yeah, I so out of high school, I mean, you asked me about my grades. They were okay. And Wisconsin was a highly desired school in the Midwest, and coming out of my high school, and I didn't get in. I applied
Hmm.
and did not get in freshman year. Did get into Boulder, and uh, and had never been to the Rocky Mountains, and so when I
Wow.
had the opportunity to go visit the school, and for anybody who's kind of driven from the airport up and over the hill, and you see,
Gorgeous.
and all of a sudden you see the Flatirons and the
Yeah.
the valley. It's the most gorgeous place in the country, or certainly
Yeah.
one of them, and the campus is beautiful, and I was in for sure. did freshman, sophomore year in Boulder. Don't really have a great reason why I transferred, um, but I did, and ended up doing junior and senior year and graduated from Madison. And I'm glad I had both those experiences.
Yeah.
Both great college towns, great universities, great people, great professors, slightly different
Right.
experiences. In hindsight, I think Boulder was amazing, and probably would have been very happy if I had just stayed. But I think back then, and I was a little unsettled and kind of figuring out what life was about and wanted to try
Right.
something different.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Did the same thing. I went 2 years to San Diego State where I grew up, and then went away to Oregon. So I kind of did the reverse and graduated from there. And it was nice feeling that two different communities. It kind of gave you a good cultural feel, and wonderful schools, both of them. What was that first job you took out of college, Dave?
So my first job, I graduated with a degree in psychology, focus on adolescent clinical psychology, and
Well, okay. So hold on. We got to talk about that a little bit. Tell us around that choice.
uh, the summer jobs that I loved the most were working as counselor at summer camps. I grew up
Yeah.
attending camps. My kids are both at away at camp right now, four-week
Nice.
summer camps. Hopefully having the time of their life and maturing. And went from being a camper to being a counselor, and it was something that I was good at. Got attention for it. Felt good about participating and mentoring other kids, and so that just became the natural path.
Yeah.
Truth is, psychology, I think, uh, is intriguing to me, just in general. Not I spend a lot of time reading and talking about behavioral economics, which is really no different than, I think, um, neuropsychology in many ways. I've just always been fascinated with why we think the way we think and why we behave the way we behave, and so that those type of courses as a part of my college experience were super fun. The more kind of, I think, clinical stuff became a little less
Less
interesting to
interesting.
me.
Yeah. Right.
And so I wanted to go and kind of jump into something where it was a bit more applied. So ended up.
Well, you went into sales, and one would say that psychology is probably one of the best foundations to go into sales, right?
Well, look, I think anything uh, where where interpersonal communication
Yeah.
affects your performance, psychology can be very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that doesn't, you don't have to have a degree in psychology. You just have to be, aware and ask questions and be thoughtful and,
Right.
pay attention. But yeah, so I mean, you asked about the first job. The first job
Yeah.
was working at a social service agency in inner city Chicago, working
Wow.
with adolescents that were transitioning from different home life situations. So it
Cool.
could be someone being unfortunately taken out of their natural birth family
Yeah.
for any number of reasons, and being put in foster care and moving from one foster home to another, or residential treatment into foster. I love that job. It was
Yeah.
it was it was everything kind of, I think I'd hoped, a profession in psychology or social services would be. It was really mentorship, helping kids in pretty rough situations find some level of normalcy and foundation in their transitions. And I did that for a year and thought I need. And those are not high paying jobs, and I had some level of aspiration for the lifestyle that I wanted to work towards over time, and so figured I had to get an advanced degree and was going to get a PhD in clinical psychology, and left that job to go do research for a professor in that department at
Hmm.
Northwestern University, and that was a year of entering data on research studies into computers, and I hated it. I just, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy being in the building. And I couldn't foresee myself applying into that program
Yeah.
and kind of being in that world for 6, 7 years. And
Right.
so it was what's next,
Yeah.
and that was the transition. That's how I just kind of fell into the tech and marketing technology world. A little bit of dumb luck, quite frankly.
And I think that first sales job was with Cool Savings, right? Tell us a little bit about that company. Was that one of the first sales jobs you took?
Well, it was, and it didn't start as a sales job.
Okay.
I had a friend who had been working at the company for about a year. This was 1999, and yeah, this was the you know first kind of wave of the internet boom.
Right.
This
Right.
was in Chicago, so it certainly wasn't the Bay Area, but there was in every major city there were
A lot going on.
companies getting
Yeah.
funded and ideas being turned into businesses. And so, Cool Savings was a company that was growing really fast in Chicago. And I had a friend who had been there, and his feedback to me was just, yeah, give me your resume, put together a cover letter, send in an application, take whatever job they'll offer you. People, yeah, we're literally hiring 20 people a week, and you'll find what you're good at. And got hired as they called it a production coordinator job, entry level job. Got ironically entering data, and very detail oriented job. Was not a very detail oriented person. Would have gotten fired from that job if I hadn't found a path into sales and made that transition pretty quickly. I think within like
Yeah.
3 4 months, was able to apply for a sales position and spent the next 7 years building a book of business
Yeah.
and learning business and contributing to the success of the company. And those were really fun years. I learned a
Yeah.
ton during
Cool.
that stretch.
And then it was kind of springboard to, I actually lost count of the number of startups you did after that. I mean, you've been a CEO for a while and have had a number of, startups, through the tech world. What was kind of the inspiration for you to jump off? Did you decide at that stage that, you kind of wanted to be your own boss? Was there just opportunities bubbling up that you just couldn't avoid? Got the bug, as some people say during the startup years. Tell us about what kind of started you on that entrepreneurial path.
Sure, it's really simple. So we were selling advertising, digital
Yep.
advertising, and pretty much had a wide open territory. I worked mainly in the West Coast, mostly California, just 'cause that's where the companies were. And I sold into a really wide range, and some of those companies were Fortune 500 companies. I remember going into companies like Clorox and meeting with marketing managers and media buyers, sitting in what I thought was pretty boring cubicles, and it was pretty boring sales cycle. And I'd come back a year later, and it would be either the same person in the same cubicle or a different person in that same cubicle, and come back a year later, same thing. And it was kind of rinse and repeat. At the
Yep.
same time, other days I would walk into a dingy office, in Silicon Valley
Hmm.
that it was a company that I'd seen advertising, and I'd get a deal and I'd come back 6 months later, but they'd give me the new address that was in a nicer building and twice as much space. And I'd come
Upgrade.
back
Yeah.
6 months later and there'd be Porsches and Ferraris in the parking lot.
Right.
And then, sometimes that company, one of those was Netflix, for example.
There you go. Yeah.
And to watch, these crazy, entrepreneurs take an idea, raise money, build a business, and see, the pace of change and opportunity.
Yeah.
That was just amazing. I just wanted to be around it. It was
So cool.
fun. It
Yeah.
was full of energy, and the difference between that environment and the environment at traditional CPG or retailer, um, it just couldn't be further apart in the corporate world. And so for me, I needed to be a part of that. And there are a lot of people that would have thought, hey, yep, I want to go work in that environment. I want to go
Right.
work for, an entrepreneurial company. And because I ended up becoming friends with so many CEOs and founders at these companies throughout, the early 2000s, and lots of them were very smart, and I thought were way smarter than me, and then others I didn't think were, you know, any smarter than me,
And there was the same number of Ferrari in the parking lot.
sometimes more. It's just,
Sometimes more.
like, but I it wasn't chasing the Ferrari ever. It
Right,
was,
right.
if they can do it, I want to
Yeah,
learn how to do it.
yeah. It was a motivator. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and
Yeah,
so I spent the next 18 years of my career learning, asking questions, certainly trying things and failing, being surrounded by the smartest entrepreneurs that I could get access to,
right,
and it took me probably, it took me a career. This was, I honestly know people who started companies in their parents' basement at 16 that
right.
sold them for tens of millions of dollars,
Yeah,
in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars, and all before they were 25. Like that wasn't me. I didn't just figure it out and get it done. It took a decade and a half, 2 decades to get to a place where I felt like I was ready, had the right network, knew how to manage people, knew how to bring ideas to life, knew go to market. Like there's a lot that goes into being a successful entrepreneur,
right.
and for me, it was a journey for sure.
Yeah. So we want to talk about Postie in a minute because I'm so marveled by it because it's just such a cool combination of leveraging old technology with all the digital tools of today. But if we think about the startups that you've done, prior to coming on to Postie, what would you say is kind of the common thread through all those startups? What was the common learning, or what was kind of that through line that you'd say kept you going, but more importantly, led you to the success you're having now?
Oh, that's a big question. I think there are few themes. Some are a little bit more esoteric, and some are a little bit more tangible. And I'll try and touch on a couple of them concisely. So, one, there are common themes in the type of businesses
Hmm.
and technologies that I've that I've been involved with throughout the years, and so, if as you addressed it, my career has kind of oscillated back and forth between being involved in building marketing technology software type businesses that helped other businesses
Right.
acquire customers, build lifetime value, grow, and 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 then also building consumer brands that relied very heavily on leveraging software and knowledge and technology and process that those marketing technology platforms taught me all about. And so I
Right.
think it one of those themes is oscillating, kind of jumping back and forth between two different sides of the table, understanding how technology and software works in a more um, digital world. And it's kind of, we take that all for granted right now, but that wasn't the case in the early 2000s, late 90s. And then when you think about all the brands that didn't exist just 10 to 15 years ago
Right.
that are now nationally known, maybe globally known, generating hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, those businesses couldn't have succeeded if they didn't understand how to leverage building relationships with consumers, leveraging you know digital media, and and so when you put those two experiences together, it allows you, I think, to have a more holistic approach.
Mm.
It's no longer this like mystification of, hey, I have this product idea and I'm going to build this product, but now I need to market and grow customers and service those customers. It was any more than it was, hey, I know how to build all this marketing technology, but I don't know how to launch a brand itself or build an
Right.
e-commerce platform. I had the opportunity to learn from my experiences working at companies on both sides of those tables. So that was one theme. The other theme that I think I was very fortunate about is the two of the companies that I helped launch, but surrounded with an ensemble cast of talented entrepreneurs, um, were um, were platform based companies. So you talked about the businesses, that the e-commerce businesses that were built in partnership with celebrities. That's all true, and the company was called Beachmint, and the idea behind it was we were going to build the technology and infrastructure to be able to launch direct to consumer social commerce businesses,
Right.
one after the next. And so it was really building the platform that allowed us then to bring businesses to market very quickly. And so the fact that I had lots of reps, it's kind of like being on the on deck circle in a baseball game, and swinging three bats, and then you get up to the plate, and it's a lot easier to get that bat around when you're only swinging one. So when you're running around with your head cut off, or like a chicken with its head cut off, running around like crazy trying to do all these these really really challenging things, at high volume, all of a sudden when you get to kind of step back and focus on one core problem that you're trying to solve, and all the technology, infrastructure, process management that goes with it, it just becomes easier. So, and the company that I was involved with, as one of the founding partners before launching Postie, was called Science, and Science was a tech studio, and we were in the business of funding and building businesses.
Yeah.
So I think during 7 years of being a partner at Science, you know, I think the number of companies that we actually incorporated and launched was somewhere around 70 to 75.
Wow.
So, 10 plus businesses a year. Many of them did not, outlive their proof of market, or proof of, concept, but others became Dollar Shave Club,
Yeah.
0 to $1 billion exit in 4 years,
Yeah.
or Dog Vacay that merged with Rover and now has $1 billion market cap as a publicly traded company. There were that pattern recognition, the speed, the freneticness, that all I think was training for launching the next company where I was, you know, CEO. And
Right. Well, tell us about Postie, and what market are you disrupting with that?
sure. So Posty is a technology platform that allows marketers the tools to run direct mail, their direct mail marketing, the actual advertising through the mail, postcards and letters and all sorts of fun creatives, with the same kind of dynamicness as any digital channel.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that was really a reaction to an organic pain point that many entrepreneurs that we were working with throughout the years had been feeling. You know, we all know, Meta and Facebook and Instagram now, and these ubiquitous, platforms and communication tools and content consumption vehicles, but you know they weren't 10 years ago,
Right.
12
That's right.
maybe 12 years ago. And there was a time where if you were building a business and a brand and trying to grow, you were running a very omni-channel, robust, marketing strategy that incorporated lots of different channels. Facebook and Google became such dominant forces with so much scale that over time, marketers started putting more and more investment and time and infrastructure and budget to those channels. And, now and certainly, back in about 2016, which is when I started kind of feeling this pain, we looked around and realized like we had this singular fail point in our growth trajectory, which is that 80-90% of our marketing budgets were
Yeah.
were going into Facebook. And Facebook doesn't always behave. Doesn't, yeah,
As promised.
yeah, it's a cash generating
Yeah,
machine, and I think pretty clearly is not for the good of the user and is not out to serve the good of the advertiser. It's to serve the good, the shareholders,
right.
and they've done it that very well. But what that means as a brand is that you wake up every day, and if Facebook behaves, you have a good day and you might hit your P&L goals, and if Facebook's not behaving, you have a bad day
Yeah,
and you might get crushed, and it may change the entire trajectory of your year,
right,
and that's not healthy.
right, right.
You need diversification, but
Yeah, like with
we
any
looked
portfolio.
around, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, we tried to find other digital channels that could allow us to diversify, our focus, and there just wasn't anything. It was, TikTok didn't exist at that point.
right, right.
Snapchat existed but didn't have an ads platform at that point. There was nothing else up and coming,
Yeah,
and so for us, we started looking at offline channels, and there are lots of really great offline channels, but very few of them have the targeting capabilities, the
right.
addressability, the measurement capabilities to run, a controlled and aggressive, marketing approach that you could do on email, or you could do on
Yeah,
Facebook, or you could do on search. And so our, we found, refound direct mail, and it's a really powerful channel. It's a fun channel to engage with
mm,
consumers. It's highly targetable. It is measurable, but you need software to make it possible to do it at scale and
right.
sanely. And there, at the time that we looked around in 2016, there was no technology to
Didn't
enable
exist. Yeah,
this
yeah.
channel, and so that was our idea. Our idea was
Awesome.
maybe we build the same technology tools that exist in our favorite digital channels, but tailor them to operate within the direct mail world. And that's what we've been up to for the past almost 7 years at this point, 6.5 years.
Dave, how has your leadership style evolved over not just the 7 years you've been at Posties, but through all those tech startups you've done, and the 70 odd that you've nurtured and mentored during the time at Science?
It's a great question. It's something I'm proud of, but feel I need to continue to get better at. I think,
That's healthy.
yeah, I think so. So there was a quote that I used to hear over and over again. I would read, every time I was thinking about starting something or did start something, I would, read all the blogs and media from, the most notable entrepreneurs, and oftentimes, most notable investors, and the same, you know, I think commentary showed up over and over again, which is, the secret to being, a good CEO or a good leader is to surround yourself with people smarter than you.
Hmm.
And I used to kind of, it never really sunk in. It
Hmm.
just, but if I look back to the early days of when I was managing and leading teams, yeah, I mean, I think I had a lot of insecurity, and probably hired people that I felt I could manage versus people that were going to be just absolute difference makers. And that's a hiring bias. And that means that if I had to hire people in all these diverse roles that I felt that I had to know more than in order to lead them properly, I'm pretty limited.
Yeah.
Nobody, very few people can know the most about everything.
Right.
So when I look around, to Postie right now, and look around, even just my time at Science, one is we were an ensemble cast at Science. That we were a group of execs assembled because we each complemented each other, and it worked really well. And in many ways, we checked our egos at the door, and there was a partner that was great at design and branding, and a partner that was great about UI and UX, and I was the partner that focused on marketing and growth, and there was one that handled operations, and one that handled legal, and one that handled fundraising, and you put this cast of characters together that all thrived in different components of what makes a business successful, and you have a much higher probability of succeeding.
Right.
So when I look at Posty, and we're hiring someone to run sales or to hire data science or to hire, branding or whatnot. If I don't hire someone that knows 10 times more than I do in that domain, I've totally failed.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's not only being smarter, it's being the expert, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I like
And,
that.
and, and, and then my job is to inspire and
Right.
to communicate in ways that help um, present the vision that we need to achieve. But if I have to be the one, and I say it all the time, like, look, if I have to be the one doing that job and this job and the job over there and that job there, we're going to be the most mediocre company ever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I look around and definitely the smartest group of people I've ever worked with.
I like that. Yeah,
And that, to be quite honest, that in of itself doesn't even matter what the product is or
right.
what the business is. That makes getting up and going to work fun
So
and enjoyable for me.
yeah, beyond obviously that that expertise and that skill level, what else do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire at Postie?
We're really protective of our cultural fit.
Mm.
So,
How do you define that? Yeah,
how do we define it?
your culture. Yeah.
Um, it would probably be great for us to do that exercise of actually truly defining it, but kind of shooting from, you know, the fly here a little bit. You know, one, we want to enjoy the time we spend at work.
Mm.
And so, like, everyone on the team has to be the type of person that is a decent quality person, first and foremost. Um, it just, yeah, I don't think there's a single person on the team here that I wouldn't look forward to going and grabbing a coffee with or having lunch with or seeing at, team meeting. They're great to talk to.
Yeah.
They're interesting.
People you want to hang out with, regardless you're at work or elsewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's piece one. Piece two is we always err on the side of intellect and potential.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that we're not trying to hire people with deep domain expertise. We are as well. But given two people that were close in domain expertise, both very strong, and one that just brought a kind of an approach to thinking through problems and challenges that made those around them smarter and better, we would give up a little bit of the domain expertise
Yeah.
in exchange for that
Yeah.
component. In most roles, there are certain roles where that's just not possible.
Right.
You
Right.
have to have very very deep domain expertise. But I think in these cases, we're kind of all talking about in the Venn diagram of things. These are all highly skilled
Yeah.
people, but there's always going to be some that present a little bit better in a task or in capabilities, and given two people that were a little bit separated there, but one just has a much higher capacity. We're gonna
Yeah.
aim for that higher capacity. It just
You're on
makes
that
everybody
side. Yeah.
better.
Makes
And
good sense.
quite frankly, like it's a company where so many of the people that work here have been with us since the first year and have had opportunities of growth. And so when you hire people that can grow, you're more likely to keep them, because if they're motivated people, they want the opportunity to continue to learn and do more and take on more responsibility. And we're in a fortunate position where we're a growing company, and so they're not always as fast as you want it to be, but there's certainly a trajectory of additional opportunity as we
Right.
continue to grow.
Right. Cool. Well, Dave, you've been very generous with your time today, but we're almost out of it. But we always have one last question we always ask our CEO guests, and that's, what kind of career and life advice would you give to someone who maybe has their eyes on the corner office someday, or, as an entrepreneur like you, still, working towards getting that successful startup going?
Look, I think the number one piece of advice in life in general, but certainly in career, is finding a mentor.
Mm,
It
yeah.
is probably the fastest path to personal development. If you can find someone that inspires you, that's been through much of what you're looking to go through in your career, that is willing to take you under their arm, find some personal commitment to to you as a person in your trajectory, that it's the most direct path, and those tend to be relationships you have for life. And similarly, I would say that as you're on the rise in your career, there's nothing more powerful than turning around and paying that forward, and finding an individual or individuals that you can then mentor. Which, by the way, the little dark secret there is that I think that the fastest way you can learn something is to force yourself to be able to teach the material. And so if you're being mentored by someone and then you're turning around and taking those lessons and using that to internalize and figure out how to coach up and mentor someone who's behind you in career development, that's a pretty good way to bookend your own personal trajectory.
Wise words. Dave Fink, CEO and co-founder at Postie, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.